All right, so this is a continuation of our study of the book of John. And we said that the core theme of the book of John is that God and Jesus want to abide with you now, not waiting until you die and go to heaven, right? And that's stated about 50 times in the book of John, right? And there are a number of events which support that. One of which was cleansing of the temple, and we've covered that recently. We said that we have to be cleansed of ourself, right? And the self is a source of all these problems. It's a core source of problems. And I think I made, oh yeah, I made a diagram here, right? So, the self is the source of all sin. I mean, we sin because we choose to please ourself instead of God, which makes ourself our false little God, all right? And we thereby violate the first commandment every time we sin, all right? So we're violating it all the time. I mean, I know I am, all right? And this results in separation from God, and there's no repairing this, right? Except for the fact that God, gave us His own Son to be the payment for us, His sacrifice. All right, so. All right, now we said that the self is a source of all fleshliness, all the nasty little mean, dirty, you know, you know, little mean little evil itches we have inside that we got to do stuff right. Uh, Also, it's a source of all lies, craftiness, deviousness, right? Stuff that destroys the temple, destroys you as a temple for God, all right? And the devil is the father of all lies, right? We talked about these things. We talked about all the really sneaky things the Pharisees did. Well, that's typical to human nature, right? Uh, all right, but also the self is why we love the world because the world pleases ourself, right? So you love the world, right? Which is loving mammon, and Jesus said, and also John said, you can't. Or Paul said also, you cannot love both God and the world because you're gonna love one or the other, right? Do not love the world nor the things of the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. All right, that's in First John. Okay. So today we're going to talk about the world. What is the world? What does he mean by that? All right, so let's see. This is sneaky stuff the Pharisees did. Here is children of the devil, liars. Right? You gotta be careful with lies because if you're a liar, you're a child of the devil. Right? Take that serious. All right, so oh yeah, we talked about aught Hades, self-willed, self-pleasing, hedonism, right? Hades comes from hedon comes from Hades, right? Uh, is self-interested, self-pleasing. That's all you care about. It's like pleasure, right? Pleasing yourself, right? Not what's right, what's good, what's just, right? And this is the way people are wired, you know. Uh, I deal a lot with U.S. history, and you know, when it comes to U.S. history and what people believe, well, first of all, it's not the facts. They don't know the facts. It's not intelligent analysis. They know none of that. Right? They start with what they want to believe, what makes them feel good, and that's the sole basis of the belief. I swear they'll know nothing about history, right? People base on that. Um, Narcissism, right? I mean, that's a form of like hedonist narcissism. Okay. Anyway, so self and pride. How God, according to our culture, that's a good thing, right? But according to God, right, man, that's the worst thing, right? You're so full of yourself, right? You're making yourself your little God. Oswald Chambers said pride is a deification of self. So you're making yourself into a little God. All right, so let's get to the world. What is the world? So the self is why we love the world, right? Because the world pleases ourself, right? The Greek word for world is cosmos, and what it means, this is from I have three sources: Zodhiates, Vines, and this Bible study tools, which I find is pretty good. Right, they have pretty good definitions too. Generally, I think Vines is the best here. Zodhiates are all right, but this is like third, but it's pretty good. All right, so according to Zed Heides, cosmos, when he refers to the physical, it's that which pertains to space but not time. And what he means by that is, so this world we can transit through space, but we cannot transit through time. We live in the chronos, where we're locked in chronological time. Tick, 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 tick. That's not changing, right? In the spiritual world, which is eternity, the aeon, that's not limited by chronological time. So God could be in the past, present, or future. All right. It's one of those weird quantum, Einstein physics type stuff, right? How time is like not what we think it is. Time warps, and there's wormholes where you can shoot through time. All right. So humanity, it also refers to humanity, the sum total of persons living in the world. Now, Vine says this: the earth is in contrast with heaven. All right. And, heavens being the spiritual world, this being the physical, carnal, corrupt world in the sense that it breaks down. It's always changing. All right. And corrupt in the sense of morally corrupt too and spiritually corrupt. All right, so it also refers to the human race of all mankind, and it refers to the present condition of human affairs in alienation from and opposition to God. This is good, all right? So it's the interests of men. Remember, Jesus said to Peter, "Get thee behind me, Satan." He called him Satan, you know one of Jesus' like ardent followers called him Satan, because you do not have in mind the interests of God, but the interests of men, right? Men stuff, right? You know, Yeah, what is that typically? Typically has to do with wealth, has to do with security, power, right? The sum of temporal material possessions. Okay, so this is like stuff, right? Worldly stuff. So, all right, so that's what the world is, all right. And then Bible study tools I picked out. These are like just deals with government, whatever, right? The literal world. Inhabitants of the earth. That's humanity, right? Men, the human family, the ungodly multitude. This is interesting. The mass of men alienated from God and therefore hostile to the cause of Jesus Christ. Those who are given to the stuff of the world, right? Put that above all things, right? Well, they're hostile to God. All right. God is all about the spirit world. The things that really matter in it. We're stuck. Our focus is so wound up and wrapped around this world, right? And getting stuff in this world because that's all we know, right? That's what we're raised in. We're born into this physical world, right? To understand the spiritual world, it's like Nicodemus, right? He was just locked in this world, right? Jesus said, no, right? You got to seek the spirit world, all right? And it's not in front of your eyes. It's based upon faith. All right. Let's see. The world affairs. The interests of men, the aggregate of things earthly, the whole circle of earthly goods. Grubby stuff, endowments, riches, advantages. All right. Your position and your connections and whatever. Right. Pleasures, which, although hollow and frail and fleeting, stir desire, seduce from God, and are obstacles to the cause of Christ. All right, you see how the world, in this sense, is not a good thing. All right, as far as God's interest. All right, so the word earth, there's two words that are used for it. One is G, one is sarx, which is actually the word for flesh, right? But they kind of refer to the same thing. So here, since earth stands in antithesis, which means direct opposition to heaven, it is associated with the idea of emptiness, weakness, sinfulness, and does not correspond with the wisdom and power of God. The word for wisdom in Greek that is used is Sophia, actually. And what that means is knowledge, that wisdom is knowledge of how to rightly regulate your relationship with God. It's like triple R. It's knowledge of how to rightly regulate your relationship with God. Okay? how to come to God, how to draw to God. Thus, the earth is the sphere of the cosmos. So, cosmos is world. So, this word G, one definition of it, right, is it's synonymous with cosmos. The other is it's talking about the physical world. All right, so it's kind of like it's very synonymous with cosmos. Right, it's either the physical world or this the interests of men which stand in direct opposition with that of God. Now the word sarx is typically deals with literal flesh, or it deals more with the fleshly nature, the nasty aspects of us, right? That's usually what is meant by sarx. But there's a definition that says the infirmity of the human race, the corrupt nature of man, subject to the filthy appetites and passions. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Fleshly and temporal advantages in this world, right? Fleshly and temporal devices in this world refer to the outward and carnal ordinances of the Mosaic law. All right, and then that to extrapolate that, then you get the Pharisees who extended the Mosaic law and piled precept upon precept, man-made garbage, right? Which really was just for social and economic advantage. A lot of it. All right. From the definitions above, cosmos and G, you can see that there are four principal meanings to the world. Right? One is the material world in which man can move through space but not time, as opposed to the spiritual world, which is not constrained by the chronological time. All right. So the literal physical world, which is also corrupt. And this world is corrupt. Physically, morally, spiritually. All right. You understand moral corruption, being dishonest, being whatever, wicked, conniving, devious, all right, cheating, stealing, whatever, harming other people. Physical corruption we talked about is simply the fact that all things break down, die, and then decay, right? Living things all turning back into dirt. All right. So another definition is a sum total of humans on Earth. So all of humanity is one meaning for the word world, right? But then also the common self-serving corrupt nature of man, the ungodly multitude. This is a quote from the definition above. The whole mass of men alienated from God and therefore hostile to the cause of Christ, standing in antithesis to heaven, in direct opposition to the interests of God, associated with emptiness and sinfulness, fleshly desires for ego, vanity, power, luxury, and the use of temporal corrupt advantages to get them. The self-serving interests of men, which stands in direct opposition to the interests of God. In fact, Jesus scolded Peter, "Get thee behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you are not setting your mind on God's interest, but man's interest." All right? He was pretty mild compared to most people who get into man's interest, right? But Jesus really slammed him. For thinking, he slammed him for thinking from a worldly perspective. But these self-serving interests revolve primarily around ego, pride, vanity, fame. Okay, 1, ego, pride, vanity, fame. 2, power, position, status. 3, material wealth and money. All right. At the core is a self, for the self drives our lust for all of these. So here we got it. These are things God despises. Lust for ego, pride, vanity, fame, popularity, all about yourself, your petty little snivelly little. So God, remember what Paul said? He said God didn't make the creature unto vanity, right? I out of a mean practical joke here. Yeah, watch this, or I'll make these guys, lame and destined for eternal death, right? No, he didn't make us for that purpose. He made us, with that purpose so that we have a free will to make a choice, right? Out of hope, Paul says, that the creature comes back to the Creator, right? That we come back to Him. right? Out of hope that we said come to the glorious liberty of the children of God, something like that. All right, power, position, status. All right, lust for this. All right, I mean, this is common. A lot of people, much of what they do is wrapped around their identity within society, right? Their status. Look at me, I'm big shot, right? Right. Wealth, material wealth, money, right? So these all go together. Well, material wealth, money is part of status, right? Power, position, right? Affects how much money you make, um, and then this could affect your social standing, whatever. It affect your ego, pride, and so they all affect each other, and they're all ultimately driven by self at the center. This is the big driving engine of all a lust for all of this, right? So that's what the world is. The world comes down to all the crap that's done in the world and all the wrong desires, right? So when Jesus spoke of the world, he was referring to the last two definitions, plus all the corrupt means of getting it. All right. All right. I think that works. All right. So yeah, this is sample stuff here. Self, me. Look at me, right? Look at I'm center stage, a status seeker, a glory hound. All right. I mean, the worst soldiers are the soldiers who fight for glory. That's just sickening. You're gonna fight and kill people for what? For glory, right? Not for what's the right cause, for justice, for good versus evil. You don't fight for. This is sickening. I mean, I can't stand people who are like this, right? It's to kill people for glory. It's just sick. Conspicuous consumption. What conspicuous consumption is. That's a word that was written by Veblen. Veblen? Was that? Yeah, Veblen was the sociologist. He made up this term. And what it is when you buy the status symbol, right? Let's say this is a car status symbol. The Ultimate's like a Bugatti, right? But you buy this. Are you buying it because you like this alone? No, a lot of people buy this because they want to be seen in it, right? They want people to think, see, they want people to think, see, I got money, I'm wealthy, I'm somebody, right? So that's conspicuous consumption. You're consuming it, right? Not so much for its intrinsic nature, right? But because you could show it off conspicuously, right? And that's what conspicuous consumption means. All right, so status symbol, luxury, design, rich. Okay, all this stuff here. Here's power trip, right? Vanity, right? Look at me. Let me take a selfie. Show the whole world. The self loves the world because the self loves itself, and the world pleases the self. I mean, that's why the self loves the world, because the self loves itself ultimately. And uh, it's what God hopes you overcome. All right, the devil rules the world. The devil rules the world, and the world is one of his greatest resources in separating you from God. So the world is a key device by the devil to get your focus off of God, right? And what is the devil? The devil's a liar, steers you away from truth. That's what the lies are. Remember his name is Diaboline, to throw across or to throw off, right? So the world is one of those things that can do that, but the self is the biggest resource of it all, right? So here's the idea. This is the way we're born. We're born with a free will. All right. So I'm going to put here self, push, fleshy desires, and free will. This is our free will. All right. Okay. And God's hope is that we make the choice independently, our own free will decision, right, to put God above us and come back to God. All right, right? That's sacrificing the self. What did Jesus Christ say? He says, "A friend sacrifices himself for a friend." All right, I call you friends. That's what he said because the idea is, we have to follow him, do what he did. What did he do? He sacrificed himself for all of us, right? Well, we are to sacrifice ourselves. Now we're not gonna like hang ourselves on a cross, right? But we have to deny ourselves. That's what he said, right? Eternal death. Okay. So the self. Think about the self. This only leads to death, right? The self by itself. Is there anything eternal about it? No. We're finite beings. God is infinite. We're going to lead to death. We're just destined for death. But spiritual death. You know, according to the Bible, is bad, right? I mean, you know, think about it, right? I've heard people testifying about near-death experiences, and they've gone to hell, and it is bad. I mean, it is just like sheer, unadulterated, nonstop, eternal terror. Would you like to be just, terrified, living in like total fear for the rest of eternity? I mean, that's gotta suck. Uh, 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 all right, so eternal death. I can't even, imagine all the nasty, you know, nasty souls that you'll find there. Um, Okay, so what is the devil? So here you got the same thing, the push, right? Fleshly desires, right? What is it? What does the devil do? Right? He blocks you, right? This is the goal. Get back to God. God is pneuma. It means spirit, right? And God is also ultimate truth and eternal life, right? Devil wants it to block your way. His best device of blocking you is yourself, right? Now I admit I'm weak here too myself. I have like umpteen social mirrors all around me everywhere I go. I'm surrounded by social mirrors, right? And it seems like they're backing off a little bit recently because maybe they're learning something. But usually they're just nasty all around, right? It is get you to focus on yourself, get you to be fleshly, right? In my case, I give into it, and I get bitter and angry, and all right. So now he also steers you to love the world. So he gets you to love yourself, focus on yourself, and to love the world, steering you away from God. All right, you love this crap. You don't love God. Right? That's what it says in John. Right? That's what Jesus said. It's either God or mammon. Right? John says, if you love the world, the love of God is not within you. All right, so here is all the stuff of the world we showed you about ego, pride, vanity, material wealth, money, power, possession, status. Right? This is the way people are normally orientated, right? Because this is what we're born into, right? The spirit world, you have to is based upon belief and faith. Uh, so if you love all this stuff, this only reinforces the self, right? And in the end, the destiny of the self alone is just eternal death. It's a dead end. It's a backwater, right? Full of nasty, toxic, filthy water. So we said that in this process of steering you away from God, and because God is ultimate truth and eternal life, the devil is a liar. Where's my cursor? But, okay, there it is. Steering you away from ultimate truth. The devil is a murderer because in steering you away from ultimate truth, he's stealing eternal life. Right? Right? And what do you get in exchange? Well, you get eternal death. What a deal. All right. The devil is Satan, which one part of the definition means separator. He's separating you from God. The devil rules the world. Okay, we'll talk about that below here. We'll give some. Where is it? Oh, wait a minute. Wait, where is the devil rules the world? All right. I guess. Oh, I guess right here. Devil rules the world. Okay. All right. Uh, The devil is okay. My opinion is this: people really, people they don't really need the devil to steer them away from God and steer back to themselves. This is the way we're naturally wired. What do we love the most? From birth, we love the self the most, right? I mean, that's who we want to please the most, right? That's who we want to cherish the most, right? That's who we uphold the most, promote the most, protect the most. Okay, and then okay, people don't need to be pushed by the devil, you know, back to self in the world because that is our nature. Yeah, I'm going to say that, that's our nature. That's what you naturally want. That's what we naturally want. Okay, so here are some verses on how, stating that the devil is the ruler of this world. Now this comes from the book of John, right? These two. This comes from Matthew, Ephesians, First John, and Second Corinthians. All right. John 12, 31, 32. Now judgment is upon this world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out. Okay. And then John 14, 30. I will not speak much more with you, for the ruler of this world is coming, and he has nothing in me. Right? He's talking about the devil in both cases. John 16:11 concerning judgment, and because the ruler of this world has been judged. So who's the ruler of this world? The devil is the ruler of this world, right? I mean, that's the way God set it up, right? Here's a guy, he controls all the material wealth, all right? You're gonna cave in and bow down to him, right? It's setting up a hurdle, a challenge to jump over, right? What does our natural flesh want to do? Well, cave in and just chase after the world. John 8:44. You are of your father the devil, and he wants to do the desires of you want to do the desires of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there's no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own nature, for he is a liar and the father of lies. All right. All right. Matthew 4:8. Again, the devil took him to the very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, all these things I will give you if you fall down and worship me. So who controls all these things, all the wealth? The devil. And the devil is just like Hades, right? Or also Pluto, right? In Greek mythology, it's Hades, but the similar devil, the similar god in Roman mythology is Pluto, right? All three are gods of hell and gods of the underworld, and gods of wealth, the controllers of wealth. Uh, Ephesians, and you were dead in your trespasses and sins, in which you formerly walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the air, power of the air. That's a devil. Course of this world, the prince, the ruler of this world, the devil. Of the spirit that is now working in the sons of disobedience. Among them, we too were formerly lived in our lusts in flesh, indulging in the desires and flesh of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, even as the rest. All right, 1 John 5:19. We know that we are of God, and that the whole world lies in the power of the evil one. All right, so who rules this world? Oh, the evil one. You're talking about the devil here. All right, 2 Corinthians 4:4. Even if our gospel is veiled, it is veiled to those who are perishing, in whose case the God of this world has blinded the mind of the unbelieving. So who's the God of this world? That's the devil. All right. All right, so the ruler of this world, I mean, the world is all this stuff. It's all about self, ego, pride. Remember, Hades is derivative of hedonism, right? Um, all right, the God is self and vanity and pride and self-pleasing. All right, well, that's a fundamental problem here. We tend not to see that because that's the way we're born. So it seems natural. The world hates Jesus and true believers. All right, let's see here. Where is my cursor again? What the heck? This is not working. All right. So we talked about the self. We said the self loves the world, right? The world is nasty. The world is ruled by the devil. And now the world hates Jesus and true believers. For example, Jesus said here, John chapter 7, my time is not yet here, but your time is always opportune. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify of it that its deeds are evil. All right? You know, these guys are like, the stuff you're doing is evil. No, we're good, right? You know, people want to believe what they want to believe, and what does it say in Proverbs, right? Every man is righteous in his own eyes. John 3. This is the judgment that the light is coming to the world, and men love the darkness rather than the light, for their deeds were evil, right? Right? So this relates to darkness, right? We'll talk about what that means. Darkness can apply to literal darkness. It can be spiritual darkness. It can be darkness in terms of morality, and what you do. For everyone who does evil hates the light and does not come to the light for fear that his deeds will be exposed. So this is moral darkness, right? But he who practices the truth comes to the light so that his deeds may be manifested as having been wrought in God. So the true person who does righteous is not of his own works, but having been wrought in God, right? So when you're truly righteous, it's not because of yourself or anything you do, right? The Bible says no man is righteous, right? Well, the only time you can be righteous is when it is God's righteousness working through you. All right, so John 15, if the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world will love its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, because of this the world hates you. Remember the word that I said to you, a slave is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you. Right? He who hates me hates my Father also. Right? If I had not done among them works which no one else did, they would not have sinned. But now they have both seen and hated me and the Father as well. Right? And then he quotes, I forget where this quoted from. They hated me without cause. This is from the Old Testament somewhere. All right, John 17, I have given them your word, to them as the disciples, and the world has hated them because they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. All right. So the world hates Jesus because he testifies that, the stuff they do is evil, right? Remember I told you, all these patriotic people are really just egotistical, self-loving people. They don't want to deal with what's true and right. They just want to believe what they want to believe. And it's based upon nothing. These people don't know jack, right? They have nothing in their heads, right? But they're desperate to believe what they want to believe. Based on what? Based on nothing, right? All right. Okay, so the world in darkness, darkness in terms of doing evil deeds and in terms of being spiritually blind. So this is moral and spiritual darkness, right? It's not literal darkness here. All right, so you have literal darkness, which is physical darkness, no electromagnetic radiation, in the visible range, right? That's all that is. And you have moral darkness, doing evil deeds, and you have spiritual darkness, being blind, right? You can have intellectual darkness, it just means dumb, all right? Right, but I'm not talking about that here. It's spiritual. You're spiritually blind to the things of God. So the world of darkness, evil, right? And this is judgment that the light is coming to the world. Men love the darkness rather than the light, for their deeds were evil. So this is moral darkness. All right, now we have darkness, not comprehending. This is spiritual darkness. He was in the world. This is like first chapter of John. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. All right, it's blind. Right? If you love me, you will keep my commandments, right? I ask the Father, and he will give you another helper. Okay, this is 14, yeah, that he may be with you forever. That is the Spirit of truth, right? That's a Holy Spirit, we said, right? Whom the world cannot receive because it does not see him or know him. But you know him because he abides with you and will be in you. Remember he said to Nicodemus, you're seriously just not getting this. You don't you don't know God until he abides in you. That's what it says in John 14, I think 17, right? The only way to really know God is when he abides within you, right? I mean, you know, you know, uh, have I known God in the past? Yeah, because I walked in the Spirit for a short time, and I tell you, I didn't really understand it intellectually at all. I just knew that it was a goodness that's beyond me. This is not. I'm not this good, right? And He's making it easy for me to be good, right? And there's a purity and a wholesomeness. Um, all right, that's all I understood, right? But you don't know that that's not natural to you until you get that. All right, all right. So another is okay. Jesus, let's see here. And Jesus said, "For judgment I came into this world, so that those who do not see may see, and that those who see may be blind." All right. So he's talking about the Pharisees who have, they have the word. He's talking about the average person who's sincere here, who's truly seeking, right? They don't know much, but they will see, right? And spiritually, and that those who see may become blind. So those, this he said this after he healed the blind guy, right? Those are the Pharisees who were with him, heard these things, and said to him, "We are not blind, too, are we?" Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you would have no sin. But since you say we see, your sins remain." So these guys say they see because you know who these guys were? These were the keepers of God's law. These were the religious leaders, right? The quote holy men. Of course, there was nothing holy about them except maybe a hole in their shirt or underwear, right? Uh, all right, so Jesus, this is spiritually blind again. Jesus answered, "Are they not 12 hours in a day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble because he sees the light. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles because the light is not in him." So is this talking about like electromagnetic radiation of the visible range, like comes out of like a flashlight? No, he's talking about spiritual light, right? Inside him. There's no like, I mean, I suppose you could swallow a flashlight, right? But he's not talking about that. They didn't have flashlights back then, anyways. All right, so spiritually blind, Jesus grumbled about not having literal. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so the Jews grumbled about not having literal bread, right? And then Jesus responded, um, "Having eyes, do you not see? Having ears, do you not hear?" Right now, that's a famous quote from the Old Testament. Three different writers basically wrote the same thing. Isaiah 10:6-10, Jeremiah 5:21, Ezekiel 12:2. So that's stated. Jesus Christ was quoting from the Old Testament here. Um, all right, so Jesus was the opposite. Jesus is the life and light. He's the opposite of what these guys are all about. All right. So, chapter 1, verse 4, in him was life, and the life was the light of men. Okay. Right? Life and light. This is Zoe. That's light. It's spiritual. This is spiritual life. Zoe. So, I'm going to put on here uh, spiritual life equals light. All right. Then Jesus again spoke to them, saying, "I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." Oh, okay, that's the same thing, light of life here. I like that term. All right. Okay. Uh, chapter 9, 5. While I'm in the world, I am the light of the world. Okay. All right. 11:9, Jesus said, Are there not 12 hours in a day? If anyone walks in a day, he does not stumble because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles because the light is not in him. So that's very similar to this pair. 12:46, I have come as light into the world so that everyone who believes in me will not remain in the darkness. So this means spiritual darkness. Right? It can also mean moral darkness. He's not talking about literal darkness here. Right? You can't be literal about this. Jesus was all about the spiritual. All right, the world will not try to make the world will try to make people stumble. All right, so this is important to understand the word stumble. The word for stumble means scandalizo, like scandalize, right? Scandal makes you stumble, in modern day sense, right? Stumble as far as your profession or your standing within society, whatever, right? Um, but it's more important spiritually because stumbling spiritually, right, leads to being lost. And the word for lost is apolumi, which also means the word for destruction, or in a different tense of this word, it means the destroyer, right? And that means eternal damnation, right? This means you're going to hell, right? You're going to eternal death here, all right? So scandalizo, destroy, apolumi. It says like apolumi means to kill, destroy, whether temporally or eternally. To kill, destroy, right? To perish, right? Temporally or eternally. Well, we all die once here in this world, and sure, that's not nice, not pleasant. But I tell you what, it's better than spiritual death, which is eternal, lasts forever, and you're kind of screwed forever. I mean, um, okay. Scandalizo, to commit that which ends to the fall or ruin of anyone, right? Fall or ruin, and spiritually, it means you're lost. Destruction, epilumi. To cause to fall away, right? You know, Apostasy is, to fall away from a former faith. Um, okay, so I may stop. Let me stop after this one here. What's putting? Okay, okay. I'm gonna stop after this one. Um, all right. So some verses of this: the world will try to make you stumble. These things I have spoken to you, so that you may be kept from stumbling. They will make you outcast from the synagogue. Right? You know. You know what outcast from the synagogue is, right? It's not just getting kicked out of church. The synagogue was the center of society, right? You're becoming a social outcast, and that includes, material benefit. It includes your profession, includes, you know, jobs you can get. I mean, you're screwed. This is. It was more encompassing back then than just, get kicked out of church. Well, I'll go to another church like today, right? There's only one temple, right? Well, there's only one main temple. I mean, but uh, okay, where's that cursor again? All right, but an hour is coming for everyone who kills you to think that he is offering God a service to God, right? That's another thing. If they threaten you, threaten your life, right? To turn away, right? Threaten you with leverage. We're going to kick you out of the synagogue. We're going to kick you out of society, right? Right? That's going to cause you to stumble, right? To cave in. Uh, you know, Apostasy, to renounce your faith, especially, not for reasons of belief, but reasons of cowardice. That's just wrong. If the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. If they persecuted me, they'll also persecute you. He who hates me hates my Father also. I read this to you. All right, okay. All right, so this is the last thing I'll cover real quickly. Do not love the world because, the devil rules the world. And if you love the world, you cannot love God. Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. Right? Remember Jesus Christ said, right, let your eye be single. All right. James 4:4, you adulterers, do you not know that friendship with the world is hostility toward God? Right? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. Right? 1 John 2, do not love the world nor the things of the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the boastful pride of life, is not from the Father, but is from the world. The world is passing away. It's corrupt. Remember I said, it's breaking down, fading away. And also its lusts, but the one who does the will of God lives forever. All right, we're going to stop there. Um, so, real quick review. You know, uh, there's a lot of problems. Let's see, where are we at? There's a lot of problems with the self, right? One of which is the self loves the world, and the world steers you away from God. It's one or the other. You love the world or you love God. Take your pick, right? Can't have it both ways. All right. So, what is the world? All right. Well, the world is in part is all the wicked devices that these guys do. The Pharisees, that's part of the world, right? But it's like material wealth, right? It's all the things that deal with vanity, status, ego, pride. Where are we at here? Yeah. Here's that diagram here. Yeah. Right. Power, position, status, material wealth, money, loving all the grubby things. All this stuff is corrupt and fading away. Right. Don't focus on this because it's going to steal away from your eternal destiny. Right. Where you going to be? Where are you going to be at in eternity? Um, All right, so both the world and self are the devil's key assets, key resources, key devices to steer you away from God. Steer you back to yourself, focus on the self, steer you to love the world. All right. That doesn't mean we're meant to be like, just forsake everything. Well, you got to make a living. You got to be productive in society. Right? You got to take care of your kids. You have to have responsibilities, but don't love this stuff. Don't make that your god, right? Just be responsible. That's what Paul said. Hey, you, you, you got to work. Yeah, you got to be responsible. But don't love that stuff. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna stop there.